Hey, that's Mike Pereira. I'm Dean Blandino. Week 12, last call. Let's start Sunday night football. Cleveland and Baltimore, AFC North matchup. But people were talking about David Njoku. Did he catch the ball in the end zone? Ashley Bastock wasn't the only one asking on Twitter, but she said the replay angle from the back of the end zone looks like the ball maybe hit Njoku's leg and then the ground. Gonna be interesting. It was interesting, Mike. What did you see on the play?
I was most fascinated to listen to Chris Collinsworth. Chris Collinsworth going, well, look, I think it hits the, well, wait a minute. Well, if you look at the shot from the front, you think, well, maybe, and from the back, well, could have been. And then you get Terry McAulay coming on and talking about maybe the tops of the blade of grass, maybe it might have touched there. I think this is one of these plays that looked and felt like, to me, an incomplete pass because it looked like it might have gotten to the ground, but I'm all in favor of staying with those calls that are so close. I mean, you can make a case either way. And when they do say stands, sometimes they really mean stands, which means if they'd have ruled that incomplete, they would have stayed incomplete, but they ruled it a touchdown. And I like the league staying consistent if they can and not overturning things that have any question whatsoever. And you know me, I used to talk about the 50 drunks in a bar, right? I mean, if 50 drunks in a bar thought it was a touchdown, then it ought to have been a touchdown. I think the 50 drunks in a bar would have been 25 to 25, 25 saying yes, 25 saying no. So I think it was right to leave it as a touchdown.
Yeah, we always talk about, and I remember talking to replay officials about this, there's stands language. When you're in the booth and you're working through the process and looking at the angles, if you take a step back and listen to the words that you're using, I think maybe it might, that's stands language. And what that means is it's not clear and obvious. It's not definitive. Either way, we know the NFL got rid of confirmed, so they just say stands if the call on the field is going to be upheld. But there are situations where they can absolutely see definitive evidence that the call on the field is correct. And then there's some like this play where it's just not clear either way. And if it was ruled incomplete, to me, it has to stay. And since it was ruled a touchdown on the field, it has to stay. And the issue was, did the ball hit the ground? It certainly was loose as it came into his body and his hands. But the question was, did it hit the ground? And I didn't think we had a clear shot. And you could tell from Collinsworth, Terry McAulay, when you use that type of language, that usually means stands. I thought there was a play near the end of the half. Ronnie Harrison intercepts Lamar Jackson. I thought that was clearly incomplete. I thought that one, the ball hit the ground, it popped up, it came loose. And they actually confirmed that on all scoring plays and turnovers. Replay has to look at that. It was also inside 2 minutes, so they have to look at all reviewable aspects of every play. And they let that one go. I thought that one was incomplete.
I'll tell you what, I was like shocked at that one. I mean, to me, that was one that there's not, well, if you got the clear shot that showed that the ball popped, and we talk about pop, what does that mean? So if you're going to the ground and you have control, okay, if the ball hits the ground, if you have control before the ball hits the ground and you maintain that control, then it's a catch. And the ball can move. I mean, there's no question. If the ball moves a bit, it still can be considered a catch. But the lingo that we use is pops. This one popped. I mean, the tip of the ball hit the ground and popped loose. And I was shocked. Even without a review, they didn't think that there was enough to reverse that. Whereas to me, Dean, I thought that was clearly incomplete.
I did. And we always talk about slight movement versus loss of control. That to me was independent movement. It was the ball was moving independently from his hands. It completely popped up, like you said, from the ground into the air. Then he regained control. So that one to me was clear. The Njoku one was, hey, whatever they called on the field, we're gonna ask the 50 guys in the bar or the 50 people in the bar whether they're drunk or not. And if it's 50-50, then it probably should stand.
Let's move to college football a little bit. Let's talk about Ohio State and Michigan. I mean, an incredible game, a big win for Jim Harbaugh after losing 5 in a row, I believe it was, to Ohio State. This is a tough game to officiate. You knew going in that this would be a hard game to officiate. You could see him in the tunnel trying to fight the teams, keeping them apart. I mean, going in, you know, you had your hands full, and they prepare for that. Officials talk about that before they get out on the field. And there was a situation where a skirmish broke out, where there was a helmet ripped off. So it was called a personal foul for pulling the helmet off. But could that have been offsetting fouls, Dean?
Yeah, and look, I want to commend the crew, because we really had to try to dive deep to find something officiated related from this game. And it's such a big game, right? You have number 2 versus number 5, Ohio State, Michigan, the rivalry. And it was a great game, great win for Michigan. Michigan fans got to be ecstatic, not so much for the Buckeye fans, but no one's really talking about the officiating. And that's a good thing, right? When we're not talking about the officiating. But this was a situation, Cameron Brown, you know, he's kind of locked up with Roman Wilson in the end zone. And you could see Wilson grabbing his leg as Brown's trying to get away. The officials didn't pick that up. And then Brown rips Wilson's helmet off. Obviously, they have to call that. And a lot of times, and you know this better than me, a lot of times we get the second act, right? We don't see what started it. I think Michigan got lucky there, that it wasn't offsetting penalties and unsportsmanlike on both players. And they only got the second act, which certainly did warrant a foul. You can't grab somebody's helmet and rip it off their head. But I thought Michigan, you know, grabbing the leg and preventing Brown from getting up, I think that's what initiated the whole altercation.
You know, when you're on the field, these things happen so fast, and where you get lost in situations like this, if you take the act of alone of just grabbing the leg and keeping them there for a second, you probably just break that up and don't call that. But then the reaction comes and the retaliation, and then you go to that and it becomes completely obvious. And then you maybe lose track of what you wouldn't have called if it was a standalone act. But I agree with you, Larry Smith and his crew were outstanding in that game. I mean, there's always plays that could be questioned, but when you come out of Michigan, Ohio State, and nobody's talking about the officiating, I think it's great. It was a great game for college football. And how about, by the way, USC's new coach, huh? I mean, that's a big thing here in college football. Lincoln Riley taking the jump to the West Coast. Will he bring all those 5-star commits with him? I mean, LA, we're here in LA. LA is hopping this morning thinking about Lincoln Riley, the head coach of the Trojans.
It's got to be, and I'm available, Lincoln, if you need me to show you around LA. I'm sure it's a little bit of a culture change from Oklahoma to Los Angeles, both great places, but different. I'm new to LA. I've only been here a couple of years. I can show you around, Lincoln. Let me know. Hit me up. Send me a DM. Hey, let's go back to the NFL and a game people were talking about the officiating, and it wasn't all positive. This was Thanksgiving Day, Raiders, Cowboys. It was the most watched game in I don't know how long. It was something like 38 million people. Well, yeah, you got America's team. You got the Raiders, 2 iconic franchises. The Raiders, they're Oakland, they're Los Angeles, they're Las Vegas. I use all 3 when I talk about the Raiders because I don't know where they are. But Mike, there was a crazy play. Darren Waller, is it a catch? Is it a fumble? Is it incomplete? Then Keanu Neal makes an unbelievable athletic play, throwing it back to his teammate. What happened on this play?
Unbelievable. Waller, they rule a catch fumble on the field. Neal at the sideline leaps from inbounds, grabs the ball, and then throws it back into the field of play. By the way, threw it backwards into the field of play. An incredibly athletic play. And that was maybe the only fun part of that game, but it wasn't, by the way, ended up changed to an incomplete pass. So all of it was irrelevant. And I did like the change to an incomplete pass because the ball came out really just before Waller got his 3rd step down. So there wasn't that element of time. But on the other hand, you just can't discount Neal's great play. I mean, it was so fun to watch. It was like a play that would happen at the goal line on saving a touchback, but it happened at the sideline where he threw the ball back into the field of play. You know, clearly there's great athletes in this game, and it's just fun to see great plays like that.
Yeah, no question. And look, from an officiating perspective, like you said, it was ruled a catch fumble, and that's kind of what we're seeing more and more as officials are letting these plays go if it's close, if they're not sure. We've seen this with catch fumble downfield. We've seen this with pass fumble. And that is the right thing to do. If you're not sure, if you're sure, you got to make a call, because then we get into kind of this no man's land where is the play still alive? Did we blow a whistle? But I think they let it go. It was close. And then replay came in and video assisted and said that, no, he did. Like you said, he didn't have his third step. He didn't complete the time element. It was incomplete. Then you get into what Neal did. And now we can talk about, is it a bat? Is it a legal bat? Is it possession and then a pass? Does it become an illegal forward pass? Does it become an illegal bat toward your opponent's goal line? A lot of factors there. And I thought what Neal did was amazing. Again, athletic play, throws it. It ends up going backward to his teammate, not toward his opponent's goal line. And but all for naught, because Waller didn't catch it. But a crazy play. And, a lot of people were talking about, there were a lot of flags in that game.
Oh, my.
I think there were 33 total penalties and 28 accepted. It was some outrageous number. And here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. People want to complain about the officiating when there's a lot of flags. Look, we always point the finger at the officials, but we got to look at the two teams as well. You look at those, there were 9 line of scrimmage fouls in that game, right? That's your offside, your false starts, your illegal formations. You can't ignore those, right? And now, look, if you take the 9, you still have 20 plus of the other type of what we would call major fouls. That's a lot. That's a lot. But hey, are they there? Are they there? Because if you don't call it when it's there, you're giving a team an advantage. And so you have to look at that. You have two of the more penalized teams in the league, and the Raiders and the Cowboys. And I looked at all those fouls, and not a lot of them jumped out as obviously incorrect. But again, I get it. It's a lot of fouls. You don't like those stoppages, but sometimes it's the teams that decide the number of fouls, not the officials.
And that's so true. And you and I have both been in this situation before when you grade a game. So you take a look at this game with 33 penalties called. You might look at these and say, hey, you know what? 33 were called. Maybe there were 3 that you could have gotten by without call, but the others were obvious. The thing that's scary about that, if you grade the game properly, you'll find 6 other situations that should have been called. Yeah. So it is a matchup situation sometimes, although I do feel that some crews are a little bit more technical than others. And I think teams understand that, because teams do scout officials. But when you look at the defensive pass interferences, including the one that was called at the end, that's a foul. I mean, it is a foul. And if an official sees a defender with his back to the ball, so he's not making any play in the ball, your finger really goes on the trigger at that point, because that's an indicator. And if there is contact, you're a little bit more technical than you might be if it was a different type, if he was playing the ball. But it's just one of those things we react, and nobody, like 38 million people, I'm sure Roger Goodell didn't like the fact that there were 33 penalties called, but it is the way it is. And although sometimes you got to take a look at crews, and you start tracking crews, are some more technical than others. And the thing that stands out to me, Dean, is the emphasis now on holding when there was really a de-emphasis on it the year before. I mean, you're just seeing so many more holding penalties that you might have at some point, and maybe even in my time, you might have considered as being a little technical, but they're right at the point of attack, and the officials call what they're told to call. That's the bottom line. And it is an emphasis within the officiating department. And although there were 33 fouls in that game, I didn't get a sense at the end that it was over officiated.
No, I agree, but I'm gonna throw a flag on us for delay a game, because that was a long-winded segment right there. So we're gonna end it here. That's Mike Pereira. I'm Dean Blandino. This is Last Call. We'll see you next week.